Hello.
Hi there, Mr. Kenna. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Good, good, good. Wow. So you live in the UK, right?
Yes, I do. I'm London
Okay.
based.
Where are you based? London?
Yeah, so I
Okay.
work in Central, but live just on the outskirts, so far East London.
Okay. Okay. Wow. I live in Watford. So yeah.
What? But oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. Mhm. Wow. So tell me, how did you get to know of this podcast?
Good
Because
question.
you sent me a message and
I
I'm
did.
yes.
Yeah, I came across the podcast through LinkedIn actually.
Okay.
LinkedIn. I was looking for spaces that are talking about Africa as a whole,
Okay.
generally, but also from a perspective of building.
Okay.
The narrative around Africa Rising for me is hiring. I would like to see Africa like to rise. Like I want it to be not an ing, but a past tense or a lived experience for young people.
Mm.
But it's really hard to find spaces that are speaking about that conversation.
Okay.
And yours was exactly that conversation. It was
Oh,
literally
really?
word for word, think big Africa. I was like, this is exactly the kind of conversation that needs to be had right
Okay.
now around Africa. And so I reached out, and that was it, really.
Great, great, Korede. So let's do it. Let's do it right now. So, you know what? Tell my audience who you are and what you do.
Absolutely. Hi there, everyone. My name is Korede, and I would like to say that I'm an educator. That's the best way to put it. I
Okay.
studied law at university, and up until university, I was a lawyer. Like that was the thing that I wanted to do with my life. But the reason I wanted to be a lawyer was because of justice. I was really keen on administering justice and was convinced the law was the best way to do that.
Mm.
By the first semester of university, I realized that the law is focused on law and order first and foremost, and if justice is administered, it's a byproduct. And I
Ooh.
really struggled with that. So I basically was now in like search of another form of administering justice, and for me, justice is equity, like giving people a chance. And I stumbled upon education, and I've been in education for the last 10 years or so, and have been within the system, but from the perspective of rather than the teaching element, although I've been a part of that, but it's more from the system itself. What are we teaching our young people? How is that being taught? Where are we going with that education? People don't realize that education is more than just maths and English. It is the kind of people that we are building, the kind of society that we want to get. And I'm interested in that part of education. And so
Wow.
Vemoye is a conduit in which I use to speak about education and administer that kind of like impactful, effective education that's building a society that I know is possible for Africa. That's me in
Okay.
a nutshell.
Wow. See, education is something I'm a little bit passionate about.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, my parents were educators. My mom retired as a head. Well, back then we call it a head mistress. Okay, in a primary school.
Ah,
My father uh, was a tutor of European history in A levels, and then when the NMPCs created their own school, he became the assistant head teacher. You know,
wow.
before he was taken away to the corporate side, and then he
Right.
retired from NMPC as the assistant head of uh, that is called the human whatever the training department. So that's has been my own little view of education from my
Mm,
childhood. Now, I was a banker, but I haven't been a banker now for almost 15 years.
Oh, wow.
Yes, yes, yes. Now, my like I said, I have a passion of it for education. And for me, I think the best way I can contribute to Africa's development is talking, asking questions.
I love that.
Okay. I love to ask questions. I love to read a lot. And I discovered that there's so many things people simply do not know. And the only way we can get to know is by asking a lot of questions and read as widely as possible.
Mhm.
And that's one thing that we as Africans don't do.
Right, right.
Okay. So you are in the space. So tell me, what are you doing right now to advance your purpose in that space?
Yeah. So our like mission statement is building Africa's future workforce. That is the best way we can really encompass what we're trying to do, because education, as I said, is a conduit in which we do that. Because I've found it to be, of all of the different versions of creating an equitable society, the one that we've seen time and time again to be a way of social mobility. So it is the way in which that I believe that we can build our future workforce by equipping them with the skills of the future. Now,
Yeah.
you and I both know we don't quite know what the future is going to look like, especially
Yeah.
now. Yeah. So
Well,
how do we,
it's going to be interesting.
it's going to be very interesting.
Good.
But we do know that we can perhaps give our young people the skills they need to be architects of that future.
Okay.
And so we kind of narrowed it down to STEM. And STEM, for those who are unsure, would be science, technology, engineering, and maths. Those are the things that I'm quite sure, to be honest, that will be used to build Africa's future.
Yeah.
And what's really exciting about those areas is that they essentially are, they give young people problem solving skills, and they are key to the kind of system and community and society that I think is necessary in Africa. So, for example, tech is the hero of STEM. Everyone knows about tech. Everyone knows how tech has very much paved the way for Africa to join the conversation when it comes to so many things. We're
Yeah.
seeing, tech giants rising on the continent. That's really exciting. But the reason why, rather than being a tech-based organization, we went for STEM is because to solve other problems such as health, we need scientists. We cannot, like things like Ebola, things like sickle cell, that tend to plague
Malaria,
malaria, right? We're waiting for the West
even
to find
agriculture.
Exactly. We're waiting for the West to find the
Solutions
time
for us.
to put funding into this, and that just isn't how society works. A problem is solved by the people who are affected by it.
Yeah.
So if we want our problems to be solved, we have to upskill our young people to solve those. So science is key for that. Engineering, of course, we know is building the infrastructure of a society, and mathematicians ensure the efficiency of all of those three areas. So that is why we focus on STEM, and that is why we're helping organizations that are doing that already. So what's different to us and every other STEM organization is that we ourselves don't administer the STEM education. What I found is that in the space, there are many amazing organizations doing incredible work, but they're working in silos. And it's just not as impactful, as effective as if we came together to work on this problem. So we're essentially a bridge between these organizations to make sure we're working together rather than overlapping or working in small communities. So that's essentially how Vemoye kind of is part of the conversation and solving the problem.
Great. I mean, this sounds interesting, very interesting. Tell me, how do you pronounce your organization now?
Vemoye.
Okay. I didn't want to butcher it, so I just kept my mouth shut. Okay. Vemoye.
Yes.
That sounds like Yoruba.
Yes, yes. So it's
Yes,
named after
yes.
my maternal grandmother. Her name was Victoria
Ah,
Ebun Olarimuli. So I took elements of that.
okay,
Similar to your
okay.
parents, she was an
Vemoye.
educator. Both my grandparents were educators as well. But I named it after her because specifically she was the first educated woman in my lineage. And she stayed in education and wanted to start a school, but passed away before she was able to do that. So in honoring her name, I said, listen, what you started didn't die with you. It will continue.
Good. That's good. Great. Great. So tell me, you guys want to work to enable STEM education. But let me go back a little bit. You have mentioned equity a couple of times, okay?
Yeah.
See, I will tell you, I don't know how you define equity.
Right.
Okay? I, as a person, I prefer equality.
Oh, interesting.
Oh yeah. I will tell you, I prefer equality than equity. Okay. Equality of opportunity for everyone is, for me, is what we all need in Africa. Okay. See, a a style of equity has been what we have done in Nigeria, for example, for the last 40 years. And it has produced a lot of mediocrity. Okay. So for me, I'm not in that equity bandwagon. I'm not.
Interesting.
Oh, yeah.
So how would you define equity? What's your, like, yeah.
Equality of results. Okay. It's as if you want everybody to have the same result. No, everybody should have the same opportunity. And the results you create, the results I create will be based on my skills.
That's an interesting
my commitment.
Yeah.
So if I'm not committed to take advantage of the opportunity presented to me, well, I fail.
Yeah.
And that's my fault. Okay. And whenever I decide to get my brain working and take the opportunity, I do well. Okay. But see, for me, equity has not only kept people down, people who would have excelled. Okay. It has done a tremendous disservice to the whole society. So that's me. Okay. I just wanted to say that. So maybe you think about those things again.
Okay.
And yeah, but opportunity for everyone. That's is what I go for.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I think I hear what you're saying, and I think that there is definitely something to that. I think for me, the understanding of equity, as you said, is the equality of outcome, absolutely.
Yeah.
But more because
I don't want that.
I think it's because the concept of equality of opportunity is difficult to administer.
No,
Because
no. Oh no. Opportunity, equality of opportunity is very easy to administer. Okay, it's the opportunity of outcome that is difficult. Because
you're right. I can see that.
Yeah, Because if you want opportunity of outcome, then we need to tweak every individual's the route for every individual. We tweak it. It's expensive and difficult. But so if you give everybody opportunity,
the fact that not everybody starts with the same access to everything. So, for example, the concept of equality is such that everybody has the right to go to school. That's the equality. Like everyone has a right to go to school.
Yeah.
But then it doesn't take into account that there's a child whose mother doesn't believe that girl should go to school.
Hold on. Let me ask you one question. Is every continent on the planet, does every continent on the planet have equal of anything? No. So in nature, there is no equal outcome anywhere in nature. So why do we want to bring that about?
Yeah, no, you're right. But I don't.
It's impossible.
There's equality of opportunity anywhere. The reality of what we're working towards is the ideal situation. Like when we're working towards a utopia of sort, we know we can never
exactly. And there's nothing like that.
Interesting.
Yeah. So see, if for me, what your goals are laudable, okay, and if you give everyone who your organization can help, give everyone opportunities, okay, those who can take it will take it.
Okay. I think we're on the same page, to be honest. Yeah. I think we have a different understanding of the concept of equality, because like for example, the concept of STEM is that we believe everybody should have access to STEM, right?
Yeah.
But we focus on the children who don't have access to it. Equality suggests that we should focus on every child in Africa, and that's not realistic. Equity, for me, that's my understanding of equity, is that I focus on those who do not have access to STEM, and I zoom into them so that they have the opportunity. So I think we have a similar understanding, just different definitions.
Okay. Maybe so. All right. So tell me, you say you want to focus on those who don't have the opportunity.
Right.
So how are you guys going to do that?
Yeah.
First of all, how do you identify those who don't have the opportunity?
Right. I think so. The best way for us to do that is through NGOs. We work specifically with not-for-profits, because they're the ones who are on ground and they know they already have that community, or they're based in communities that already struggle to get access to them. So it's a really quote unquote easy way for us to be able to identify those who are who lack the access, because the NGO was set up to do that. And they work within state schools or within communities, rural communities on ground. So that's how we find those who are who don't have the opportunity.
Okay. So do you guys started anywhere in Africa? Hello?
Oh, hello, yeah.
Yeah. Have you guys started anywhere?
Yes, so we are based in mostly West Africa in terms of the work that we do. And the work looks like, as I said, we work directly with organizations that are on ground. And we support them in three main ways. That would be through resources. So physical resources, we identified three areas that these organizations are really struggling with, and they're spending time and money on and just not getting anywhere. Physical resources, digital resources, and training.
Okay.
Those are three main areas. And so what we do is that we work with an organization to actually find out the issues and the areas in their organization, whether the inefficiencies lie, where could they increase their impact. And then we create a project plan. And that will fall under getting them the digital resources, the physical resources they need, all the training
Yeah.
that they need for their teachers or for the leadership and things like that.
Mm.
And so we have like an organization, for example, a lot of the time as well, we actually work with diasporans. The diasporans that have gone out there to set things up
Yeah.
are looking for a way of doing this and are struggling with finances. So the number one problem in this space is money, right?
Yeah.
And so we're saying, absolutely, I mean, we appreciate that money is the problem, but what if we're able to solve a problem that would have cost you money? You know, and that's how we support them. And
Okay.
so an organization in Liberia started a STEM school, and it was supposed to be holistic. It covers everything. Like the young girls would come there and they would stay there from 14 to 18, and it would be a boarding school. But that was going to be very, very expensive, and they just needed a way of starting up in a way that would be far more cost effective. And so the area that we identified to be an issue and that we could solve for them would be the digital resources. The physical resources.
Okay.
As I said, we have an ecosystem of organizations. And so we reached out to one of our organizations that would have access to the different areas of physical resources that they needed. And we were able to get that to them at a fraction of the cost. The resources themselves were free. They just had to like work on the shipping of the resources.
Okay.
So we helped with the logistical elements of that. And then essentially they can use the funds that they would have used for that to go into teaching. One of the issues was they were struggling, how will we pay the teachers? We just saved them tens of thousands of pounds. They now have the funds to be able to pay their teachers.
Wow, that's great. That's
great.
So
we find ways to increase the inefficiencies or to increase their efficiency, and then increase their impact is the key. So they can take on more students now, let's say, because we were able to save them money in an area.
Nice. Wow. So I'm sure doing anything you are here, you want to make an impact in Africa, thousands of miles away. Okay. I know because I have those similar issues. Right. What are the biggest challenges you have faced on this journey?
Yeah, so one of the biggest things, of course, is like I do a lot of the work remotely. Yes. And so everybody that has ever spoken to me about doing anything in Africa was like, there's no way you can do it remotely. You cannot do it remotely. They will take everything. There's nothing that will get there. Every scare story, every story I've heard. And so I suppose I was aware of that, wary of those things, and had to put in place systems that would ensure that would reduce the effects of corruption. That's the best way to put it, really. So, for example, we're a registered charity. So one of the things that we don't do is like transfer like direct money to any individual. It'd only be to a specific organization that has shown already a track record of what they already do, let's say.
Okay.
And so as well, a lot of the work that is done on ground is directly with that organization. So if, for example, we're sending resources, that organization is the go-to person to go and pick those things up. You know, so it is about creating a relationship with the organizations that we work with, building trust, absolutely, and realizing that we're on the same team. You know, I think that it's so easy to be overwhelmed, or should I say?
It's very easy to be.
Yeah, with the situation, but realizing that it's one thing at a time, one organization at a time, as it were, or one project at a time, and we're making impact in that way. The fear is that where issues could come is that if we try and do too much too quickly, we will then lose sight of or create a space where errors can come in, and then we've missed something, or someone's able to take advantage of us, because we're moving slowly but effectively. We're able to spend time and say, okay, is this going to work, or are there any red flags here? Have we done our due diligence in every single organization that we work with, and then we make a move in anything that we do. So it is all about those things. I will say COVID, should I say helped? I hate saying that COVID helped because of all the COVID
well,
has done.
if COVID helped, that's great, because for me, COVID bumped my business in Africa. Yeah, it did. Yeah, but partially it happened because of the kind of demography I was working with. Okay, that demography was not able to sustain the work. Okay, because of COVID. Yeah, but yeah. So if it helped you, then yeah. Well, yeah, for you guys in education, COVID actually helped education to go online.
Exactly.
Okay, so yes, it did that. It did that.
So it meant that the conversation around online STEM, all that kind of stuff, was just there was just more awareness around it. The funny thing is that Vemoye was launched officially on the in January 2020. A month later, COVID hit. So before all the plans that we had were in the bin. So our plan was to go on ground and one by one recruit organizations and work with them and things like that. So the reason why I say COVID kind of changed all of that was that we had to think of another strategy, which meant we were able to take on more organizations, focus more on the STEM space, because initially STEM wasn't the focus. It was education in general, or
okay,
basic education. But the whole going online thing really highlighted that, oh wait, the world is moving in a particular direction, and we want our young people to be specifically ready for that. And so STEM became the focus. And so
that's nice. That's nice. Now, coming back to education in general, see, yes, STEM will be the star. Okay, I use that, the star of development this century. Okay, but see, for me, I studied sciences. Okay, I had my first degree in biochemistry. Okay, so yeah, my second daughter is doing her GCSE. Okay, she did maths today. No, yesterday maths and history. Okay, tomorrow she's gonna do, is it biology tomorrow? Yeah, I think so. So now, see, I want Africa to add value and be respected by the rest of the world. Okay.
Right.
And just focusing on technology, okay, for example, will not give us the enough leverage in the sciences.
Right.
Okay. Like you mentioned it earlier, technology is, see, you don't have to be a scientist to do technology. Don't. See, but the foundation of any technology is the sciences. So if you want to do sustainable technology, to build things, you need to understand, at least have a solid background, not as an individual, but as a society, okay, of the fundamentals of that technology, which is the basic sciences, physics, chemistry, biology, and mathematics. Okay, so see, I one of the things I'm preaching, okay, preaching a lot, is that I want a lot of our young people to study basic sciences. I mean, a lot. We have a lot of young people.
Right.
Okay. So if we can get 20% of the youths who go into the sciences, okay, including engineering and technologies, to study basic sciences, okay, not as a second option, no, but as a first option, that I want to study biology, I want to study physics, I want to study chemistry, I want to study microbiology, because prior to now, or at least at my time, I hardly, I'm not sure if we had 10% of the people who study these courses haven't to have picked those courses as their first choices. Right. Most of us wanted to study medicine, pharmacy, engineering, and because we couldn't get these courses, we ended up studying biochemistry, and that's wrong. See, in developed countries, the best science students in secondary school, the very best, study physics, physics and maths, the very best. But at least in Nigeria, in my era, the people who study physics and maths are people who failed to get the cut-off marks to study engineering. And that's wrong. You see, this is an area, I'm telling you this story because as a person who is passionate to promote STEM, okay, I wish that you guys can help resolve these issues, okay? Yeah. And to encourage people to actually study those basic sciences, right? Because those are the fundamentals of the technologies of tomorrow. Okay, if we don't get involved in physics, the research, we will always rely on the Western world, China, India, to do the research. And if they don't give us the information, we can't create any new technologies in the future. That means we will always be reliant on them. So to ensure we don't overly rely on them, we need to get into the space where the research is being done.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I completely agree.
Yeah. Okay. Because, hey, technology is going to run the world.
Absolutely.
Okay. So let's get in at the ground floor, where the thinking that bets those technologies are being discovered.
Right. Right. Yeah.
That is in the physics labs.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Honestly, you've really covered it.
Okay. Okay.
The reality is, STEM is more than tech.
Yeah.
Science, as I said at the beginning, like, we need pathologists, we need people that are going to solve the actual problems, not just a doctor is great, but they're not solving they're not like the creators of the research that then actually eventually solve the problem.
Less than 2%, okay, less than 3% of doctors are scientists.
Wow.
Doctors are not scientists.
Yeah, no, you're right. They are. It's true.
Okay, medicine is a technology using the fundamental science.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I really hope that I think the way we go about solving that problem, as it were, is to make the sciences attractive. And the only way we make the sciences attractive is by representation. For young people to see what it looks like to be in that space. They have no idea. So as a kid, like I decided I was either going to be a lawyer or a doctor because that's all I knew as options.
Yeah, maybe your auntie or something. Yeah.
No one told me that there were other options out there. And by the time I'd grown up, I was already stuck in my ways. I decided in my head I was going to be a lawyer, and there's nothing you can do about it. It is in the younger years that you implant within them other options in terms of okay, I've never seen that to be an option. They might not decide they want to be that today, but when they grow up, that seed that was planted could eventually sprout. So I think it's really important that young people are introduced to other options in terms of jobs. And even if they don't see it themselves, they should at least know that it is a possibility. Because I think representation is important, but it isn't something that I have championed in the way that I think other people have championed in other spaces, because I don't want it to be, if no one else has done it, you can't do it. I want it to be
that's a good thing. See, representation is nice, I would say.
Yeah.
Okay. But like you say, if you say you can't do something because you haven't seen anybody like you, hey, somebody needs to start it.
Right.
Why not you?
Absolutely.
Okay. So on that basis, representation, it's not a requirement. Okay. Now we need to find, by the way, what is representation?
What is it?
Yes. My point is this. There are always someone who is representing you or me in any space. Okay. See, I will say this clearly. I don't use color as a yardstick of who is representing me.
Yeah.
See,
I can understand that.
I will tell you I will tell you my story.
Okay.
The first set of books I can remember my father gave me a series of children's science books. We still have those books in my father's shelves in his house in Lagos.
Right.
Okay. That was when I was about 3 or 4. Okay. We still have those books, a series of 12 books. They're all science books. Okay. So that was my first exposure to those things.
Yeah.
And then as a 10, 11-year-old kid, I used to watch Carl Sagan, Cosmos. My God, I loved Cosmos. In the 80s, Carl Sagan, now, hey, he was a middle-aged white man in New York. I didn't know where New York was, but I love listening to him. As a young kid. Now, did that drive me to study sciences? No, it didn't. But I loved thinking crazy things. See, my imagination was wild. Okay, so let's find kids whose imaginations are out of the box,
Right.
and encourage them to continue thinking out of the box,
Mm,
and teach them critical thinking.
absolutely. My favorite word, my
Okay.
favorite buzzword, critical
Okay.
thinking.
See, I will tell you, science teaches critical thinking.
Yeah.
Science does that. Okay. So that with their imagination and able to think and ask questions, hey, they might discover what dark matter is, dark energy is. Who knows? Okay. So uh, it's what you're doing is incredible, but we have a lot of work to do.
Yeah. Yeah, we do have a lot of work to do. Yeah, no,
See,
thank you. It is exciting to be in this space, but there is so much to do. It's encouraging. Every day I speak to a new organization, it is very, very encouraging. But I actually want to go back to what you said about critical thinking and this concept of finding young people that have an imagination. I think you're
yeah.
absolutely right. But what I want to do is a little bit further than that, and it's actually to create the imagination within the child, as in
Mm,
to awaken within. I think every child or many children have it more than have been allowed to awaken it within themselves. So how do we bring that about? Bring that curiosity about? Because one of the things you hear time and time again as we speak to these organizations is that the education system in Nigeria specifically, I know someone was speaking about this, is mostly about repetition, rote learning, but and doesn't give them a chance to think. They're told this is the information and knowledge you need to take in, and there's no conversation around that. There is no critical thought around that, and so by nature, the education system already isn't creating thinkers. It isn't creating problem solvers. It's creating people who will um, follow the rules and will continue society as is. And it brings me to the thought that everyone says, we're waiting for the old leaders to die out. We've been waiting for 100 years. So as we can see, that is not how it works, you know. And so in order to actually bring about change, we have to change the system and how we're bringing our young people up. And so critical thinking is key. And as you said, science does that. STEM in general absolutely does that. And so because we have to solve problems, it isn't just
yeah.
about being able to code. That is the least of my issue. That's not what we're trying to do here. Is how will that coding solve a real problem within our society?
Yeah.
You have to think first before you can do that.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely agree.
See, human beings, human beings are naturally imaginative. Okay.
Exactly.
Adults dull the imagination of kids by shutting them down.
Right.
Okay. I was lucky when I was a kid. My mother used to call me inquisitive monkey. That's because I ask 1,000 questions per minute.
Wow.
And luckily for me, I still do the same thing. See, uh, when I was a teenager, my uncles were angry at my father that they were talking and I will be talking. And they tell him, why is your son sitting with us while we're discussing important things? I'm telling you the truth. Okay.
I'm laughing because I've had a very
Yeah.
similar
Yeah. And
conversation.
my father used to tell them that by the time I'm 15 years old, if I can debate with him,
Mhm.
that he has failed. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah, that's what he said. But I will tell you, by the time I was 16, my father was angry at me because he couldn't stop me from debating with him. And I'll tell you this. I have the same issue because my daughter one especially is so argumentative that sometimes I just want to tell her to shut up.
Oh gosh.
But I know for the same reason my father didn't stop me, I can't stop her.
Absolutely, absolutely. It is
Now, what am I
yeah,
saying? See, we stop, adults stop kids from being imaginative by shutting them down. So the best way to continue nurturing the imagination of young kids is not to shut them down.
Absolutely.
If we don't know the answer to the thousands of questions they ask, all we need to say, why don't we go and find out?
Exactly.
Okay. Maybe we won't get the answer today, but let's continue searching.
Right.
And one day, hey, we'll find the answer. And that's what science does.
Right, so, right.
Yeah.
I really yeah, I loved your story about your own like experience. It reminded me, I was laughing because it reminded me of my own experience as a child. I remember I used to go to the hairdressers with my mum, and I was very very young, and I had no problem with speaking to the other aunties there. I remember one of them asking me, "How old are you?" As if to be like almost like she was offended that I had the girl to speak to her. And I told her, I can't remember how old I was. And I asked my mum later, "Mum, why did she ask how old I was? What did I have to do with anything?" My mother said, "Because you were brave enough to speak to her." Like, you know, it was surprising to her that a child would dare to be in that space with adults and join the conversation. It was almost offensive, maybe even rude to her.
It is. It is for adults.
Go.
Yeah.
To join the conversation that I thought was particularly interesting. So I chimed in. And it's obviously because of my parents I didn't understand the issue because my parents had no problem with us bringing up our thoughts and our fears or anything like that growing up. So I really do encourage parents to be okay with being uncomfortable, because it wasn't comfortable for my parents to have children that could ask them, "But why did you do that, Dad? Based on what you said, Dad, that's not how we should be acting." Very uncomfortable. Like, but it has made it has, like, they're very proud of who we are today as a result. We do not just take anything as it comes just because. But that meant that they were uncomfortable for a good portion of our childhood. That we would question everything. So yeah, I do encourage parents that want their children to make a difference, to do something significant. You have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable with your children, asking why or questioning your decisions or the things that you do. And it has to be said. Actually, my parents actually specifically said that we could do that. So an example of that was we're a Christian household, so anything in the Bible was like key. But my father would always say that whatever it is that you have concerning anything we do, if we say that the Bible goes, let's say, and we are doing something else that what you're not sure about, explain, tell us, say to us. So in our house, we had the right to say, "Dad, you said this. Based on the Bible, this is the case. So why are you doing this?" Very uncomfortable, but they gave us the right to do that.
That's great. That's great. And that's what we all need to encourage as many parents as possible to do. Now, it's not gonna be easy, because one, that's not how adults are. Okay. Exactly. We as adults, we are rigid. So anybody who is not as rigid as us, we find them uncomfortable. Okay. And secondly, our society. Okay. We have these codes that doesn't encourage kids to step out of line.
Right.
Okay. Yes, it had its uses, but now we need to begin to reverse that. Okay. Yeah, it's gonna be
It's hard. It's a hard ask.
a challenging.
What you're asking is
Yeah.
hard.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be.
Because
See,
it's ingrained in culture.
yeah.
I'll give the example. My brother had a summer job once within a space where kids come and play, right? And he used to do like the party. You come and you bring your like a bunch of kids, and it's a party atmosphere. And he could distinctly tell the difference between an English child's experience and an African child's experience. They both were coming to the same party, but if it was the birthday of an English child, their spirits were high and they were excited. The African child, if he was doing the party, he said it was so difficult because he said for some reason the words he used, like for some reason we break their spirits. Like they had they were uncomfortable with the playing. They were uncomfortable because it's like, oh, as mum given me permission to be in this space, to be comfortable and things like that. There's a freedom that we take away from our children from this is a very young age. These are parties. And to see it, and it stuck with me from that time that he said it, that there is the nature of the way we raise our children is such that they aren't allowed to go outside of the box. And if we want to create a society that is future thinking, we have to give them the permission to go outside of the box, to think for themselves.
Yeah. Now, having said that, we also see this is a dilemma.
Right.
We want to give them permission to explore, ask questions, to be critical thinkers. Okay. I'm African. Okay. Yes, my parents were not typical African parents. Okay. But I'm traditional. I know a lot of culture. Okay. Even though I don't always work according to that culture, I know what it is.
Right.
Okay? So I know when I'm getting out of line with the expected cultural norms.
Right.
Okay. So it depends on who I'm dealing with. I know this person would not allow this, so I stop. So what I'm saying is that even though we want our kids to express themselves and be free, I think we also need to teach them a little bit of culture so that they know when they are stepping out of line, and they know who they can and who they can't talk to or deal with this way.
Absolutely.
Okay.
No, you're
because
right.
I will tell you, there's a lot of good in our culture.
Absolutely.
You know.
I agree. I think that the concept of culture isn't what we're trying to fight against here. It is an element that has, I wouldn't say, how do I explain it? It's not like it's reached the end of its life cycle, but it needs to be tweaked. That's what we're saying. But I don't believe we throw the baby out with the bathwater. I'm
exactly
very pro like culture and traditions that make sense, that we have a reason for, not just because we're doing them for the sake of doing them.
Agreed.
So I'm Nigerian. I saw, for example, when I came here, when I realized that you were older than I was, I couldn't now refer to you.
How do you know?
Like,
who told you so?
No. These are the things that I have no problem with, because I understand that someone being older than you is someone to respect, and there's a particular way we approach them. There's nothing wrong with that. There's a reason for that, and I fully think things like that need to be preserved. It's not for us to now move to say everybody has to act like other parts of the world or whatever. That's not it. And actually, one of the key things that I was very clear about when starting Vemoye was that where we have to listen first before we bring about change. One of the first things we do every time we work with an organization, you lead the change by telling me what's happening first. I want to understand the cultural nuances. What is that is actually happening based on culture, not just based on we need to bring math, English, and we're bulldozing. one key thing that we did in our earlier project was have someone called like a cultural consultant, like somebody from that region, from that area, that would tell us, why are we doing things in this way? Is there a cultural reason that underpins this, so that we can realize, okay, what part of this would be in a respectful way to approach this, to bring about change, absolutely, to bring about growth, but without being offensive. It's a very Western perspective to come and say, this is the right way of doing something, and you take it or leave it. No, we're working together, and there has to be compromise.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I agree. I agree absolutely. You and I are both Africans in diaspora. Okay.
Right.
So in your view, what are the roles in Africa's development in the future?
Right. Yeah. So in terms of the diaspora, I think many people would say that the diaspora is like the secret weapon, as it were, of Africa. That's how we've positioned ourselves, and that's what we've been told. But we haven't been mobilized. Like, as much as there's no point with of having a secret weapon that actually hasn't been mobilized to do anything.
Yeah.
So yes, I agree that the diaspora could be the key to change on the continent, but only if we figure out a way to work effectively. So many diasporans go back and they build a house, they start a small business, and that's their kind of contribution to society, and that's great. But I would love diasporans to start thinking about more than just the legacy they're leaving for their own kids. That's mostly what it is, right? Want to start something so that my children can inherit this, and I've left this to them. Diasporans that will bring about real change have to think of the society at large. And what I want to encourage people to do is look at their skill set. What did you acquire while abroad? What skills do you have? There's so many like people in healthcare. There's so many people in corporations. Like, if you can sit down and narrow down those skills, how then can you use those skills within pre-existing organizations?
Yeah.
Absolutely feel free to start your own, but there are so many people doing great work out there that encourage people to actually plug into what's already happening.
Yeah.
And make those more effective. And that's what we're talking about in terms of, rather than working in silos, we're working together. And I promise you, reach out to an organization that would fit the skill set that you're looking for, and they will bite your hand off. They'll take you because the brain drain is real. We are now building a new generation, hopefully, of skilled young people, but nothing makes up for time and experience. That doesn't matter how that you've gone to school. You can't make up for somebody who has worked in the NHS, let's say, for 20, 30 years. That kind of experience cannot be got by going to school for 2 years, 3 years. So you have something unique to give the ecosystem, and I really encourage diasporans to plug back in from that perspective.
You're very right. See, I came to the UK nearly 15 years ago. Okay. And after working in Canary Wharf and the city, I decided, man, maybe I need to go back home. Okay. And I started talking to other people, hey, let's go home. Home needs us. Okay. Unfortunately, I couldn't go home, but I have a lot of people who I talk to who have gone home. Yeah, a lot. I'm doing what I'm doing now. Hopefully, I'll be able to go home and put in some work. Yeah. I wish I could be in Nigeria right now. Anyway, yeah, I would eventually go home. Yeah, that's my goal. Yeah. Now, this is something I don't know how much you are familiar with the African movement. Okay,
Mm.
but many young Africans constantly talk about one Africa. Okay, uh, so in your view,
Mm.
would this one Africa ever be a reality?
That's a good question, and I can't say I have the answer, but my perspective on it is that it was the initial way that I went about Vemoye was the concept of Pan-Africanism, which I still think there is some truth to that. We as people say, I'm sure you've heard, in terms of what constitutes Nigeria, what constitutes all these other countries, were just lines that were put by those who colonized the
Okay.
continent. So because of that, people will say, technically, really, we're just one Africa. But even before that, we had communities. We had tribes of sorts. We were still working individually in a sense. And I think that many of the problems that face the continent are similar from country to country. So I
Yeah.
think we can draw on each other's experiences. But the continent is so large, it's so big that I struggle to see whether it's realistic to say that we will. There's a way of like all of it happening all at once with the continent. I will say though, I do push the narrative that if we do work on Nigeria, being that it's one in five Africans are Nigerian. If we work on Nigeria, we go a long way to making
Yes.
a dent in the problem in Africa.
Yes, we do. We do. Now, see, this is my view about Pan-Africanism. One, I started talking about this sometime last year after I sat down to think about the diversity of that continent.
Right.
We are the most diverse. That place is the most diverse on the planet.
Right.
We have over 3,000 tribes.
Yeah.
Okay, 3,000 tribes. In Nigeria alone, we have 301 tribes. Okay, so, and I said, if we are really interested in this one Africa people talk about, we need to understand and acknowledge our diversity.
Right. Right.
If we really want to work together, then we need to understand the next tribe. How are we similar? How are we different? Because until we do that, we can't work together.
Right. Right.
And I haven't seen any considerable amount of work to understand the next tribe.
Right. No, you're right. It's true.
So it doesn't seem, even for those who are shouting one Africa, it doesn't seem they are doing the work. They are willing to do the work that will allow Africa to be that one. Secondly, the continent physically is large. You can fit in the United States, India, China, in that, and so many other small countries in that continent.
Yeah.
Okay. So it doesn't make sense to think that all the tribes from east to west, north to south, ever knew the other was existing. So even though we say, okay, that the colonial masters just drew lines to separate us. In truth, we were not together.
Yeah, we were all doing
Okay,
our own thing
the
before.
the people in Western Africa and the people in Eastern Africa didn't know each other. We didn't know that we existed. Okay,
Exactly.
so that story that those people came and no, okay. See, yes, we all live on the same continent, but somehow we have been separated for thousands of years
Yeah.
that we didn't know that either of us even existed. That's the
Right.
truth. So, see, for me, do I want one Africa? If it's possible, why not?
Exactly.
But to for that to be achieved, we need to start telling ourselves the truth. Let's not continue telling ourselves these myths about all of us being one people. Nah, we were never one people.
This is it. This is it.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's the truth. We
Yeah.
were never one people. Yes, we all live on the same continent. Yes, we all are blacks, but we were never one people.
Yeah.
Now, do we want to be one people? If you do, let's make it happen.
Yeah.
But to make it happen, we need to start telling ourselves the truth and start understanding each other. So the work is what we need to do. See, this is part of the thing I tell people that a lot of people get angry at me. See,
I enjoy hearing perspectives.
if you want these things to happen, then we need to we'll tell ourselves the truth and deal with it.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, Pan-Africanism. I was watching a YouTube video this afternoon, and I sent it to my daughters. Okay. The question was that they were asking African Americans to how many African countries they could name and identify on the map. Unfortunately, only about one of them even knew one or two African countries by name.
One or two African countries?
Yeah, by name. Now,
it's Nigeria and Ghana then, basically.
they knew Nigeria and South Africa.
Oh, okay. Wow. Okay.
But they knew them, but they couldn't identify them on the map.
Wow.
Okay. So, say if we say we're going for Pan-Africanism, the youths of Black youths in North America do not know anything about Africa. So all these things are things we need to do with. Okay, yeah. if we are going for that, so yeah, that's one of my rants I make from time to time, because I want people to start thinking about things, not just saying them, just saying something doesn't make any sense.
Doesn't make it happen. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you're right. I think actually, even hearing you speak, the concept of Pan-Africanism actually, based on what you've said, actually makes me think that perhaps it really came from more of a outside of Africa perspective, because inside Africa, the concept of Pan-Africanism doesn't really exist. Is an outside perspective of those of us who have been dispersed, like almost dislodged from where we were, and we needed some kind of coming together of sorts, So yeah, I think that's really where it came from.
Yeah. So now, see, I love to read. I really, really love to read. Okay. And one of the things I do is to encourage young Africans to read. Okay. So can you please recommend 5 books
Ooh.
for my audience to look out for and and read this year?
I would say I'm trying to bring up my Audible.
Okay.
Audible has my current reading list.
Okay. See, my Audible has one 181 or 188 titles, of which I've finished at least 160.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm a fan of rereading books, so I tend to come back to a book rather than, because I'm convinced. They say that you have to see or read something 7 times before you even retain 60% of it. So I'm a huge fan of coming back to a book and digesting it again and again. But one of the books I would actually encourage people to read is one called Essentialism by Greg McKeown.
Okay.
Essentialism. Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you heard of the book before?
No.
Right. So the book is, I love this book. It was the reality of not being able to do everything. It comes to terms with the idea that in order to be successful in life, not just the concept of work, but in life, it is the sacrificing of the many for the few. What are the few things in life that hold value and things like that?
Yeah.
And the
focus.
Yes. The book really helps you to make those decisions. Very difficult decisions.
Great. I definitely get it.
Yeah, I love that book. So that's one of the key books that I'm really, really huge fan of. Another one would be Atomic Habits.
Okay.
I'm sure you've heard this one by James Clear. Everyone is a fan of this book. But honestly, the reason it's such a known book is because it is great. It is the idea of bringing together habits that last a lifetime by doing small things.
Yeah.
And he shows you how to build those habits. I would say, the book really, really helped me to put together what would be not just a focus, but to actually know how, okay, this is the kind of life I want to live. This is the kind of person I want to be.
Yeah.
Right. What habits underpin that kind of lifestyle, that kind of person. And yeah, I think people don't realize that those who are living a life that they enjoy, those who are living a life of purpose or anything like that, it was built. Like it was.
That's it.
It was a built life.
That's it.
So books like these really help us to get the framework for how we achieve that.
Okay.
So that would be my second book. And what would be my third book? Oh my goodness, this book is called Influencer. This particular book is more like a case study, a book. So for those of us who want to make change in the world, this book called Influencer, it's got a few people that wrote it together, but Carrie Patterson is the main writer.
Okay.
And it's the idea of how we create change in society through behavioral changes rather than trying to change a whole person's like culture or mindset, because those things are really hard. So the book suggests, okay, in order to make change quickly, the fastest thing we should do or be looking at is actually how do we change behaviors? How do we give people things they can do? All right, that would bring about an outcome, or bring about a lifestyle. So, and they do that through case studies. So they, for example, they go to a village. I'm not quite sure where in Africa, but they went there, and one of the biggest problems that everyone was dying from the water system, and that they were drinking the water that clearly they knew wasn't good for them, but there was like no alternative. So they gave them all a kind of, it's a cloth of sorts. If you put the water through this, whatever it is that's causing the sickness would be taken out. But they found that after a couple of months, nothing had changed. They'd given them the thing that would help them, but the behavior had not been implemented.
Wow.
What people miss is that just because you have the tools for something doesn't then necessarily know how to kind of
implement.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah. So the book shows that, okay, here are the tools, but how do we get people to find an easy way to do it so that they actually do what's good for them? Because we don't always do what's good for us.
No.
And so this book tells us how we do that for ourselves as individuals, but also how we do it on a societal level, and how people created change. Yeah, love the book. Love it. So it's my book to be a game changer in society.
Okay. Next one.
Oh, you want another one? I thought it was
Yes.
three.
I want 5.
Oh, 5. Sorry. Let me
Yes.
see. Let's go for peak performance. So I hope you guys have seen the theme here, the kind of books that I'm into.
I do. I can see.
Peak performance. This one is about again the concept of how do we get the best out of ourselves, but from an athlete's perspective. Like, so you look at athletes and how they are known for how they put themselves under a particular kind of pressure to get the best out of us. But this book breaks down areas and elements that I myself at the time had not thought about. So the importance of how I sleep and things like that. And when I sleep, at the time I read this book, I was a night owl. I was convinced that that's just how I'm wired, you know. So the book made it very clear that's not how you're wired.
I hear that a lot, my daughters. That's how I am.
The book made it very clear that scientifically I am at a loss by choosing to say like this. So it's just full of science-based evidence of how we peak our own performance, you know. And the importance of sleep, the importance of routines, how we use our time in those routines and things like that. So I would definitely tell us to read that. And my final book would be Captivate. Captivate. This book is Vanessa Van Edwards. This book
it's called what?
It's called Captivate.
Captivate.
By Vanessa Van Edwards.
Okay.
And this specific book is about networking. I read this book at the time that I really struggled with the concept of networking. People think because I have no problem talking, I enjoy networking. That's not true, right? I really just didn't enjoy the concept of it. But this book flipped the concept of it on its head and made it very easy for you to acquire real connection with people that you had never met until that moment. How do we start that conversation? Where do we position ourselves in the room? How do we make them the focus rather than ourselves? What can we offer them, right? That would be of value to them rather than thinking about ourselves. And then the book as well makes it so great in about understanding human beings. So she's a psychologist, so she comes from a perspective of how humans function and work.
Wow.
And so she gives you a way of even a grid of how you understand somebody's like value system, what their love language or work language is. How you would create that for all the people in your life and realize, I haven't been actually the right kind of friend to this person because this kind of person values status in life and I haven't encouraged that in them, or they value love, or they value money, because everyone thinks it's money, but everybody has a different thing. And reading the book made me realize that, this friend of mine is more about status, this friend of mine is more about this, and it means that you can encourage them or uplift them in the way that is of benefit to them, not of benefit to you. So
fantastic.
It's a fantastic book. Really, those books that I've given are the books that I would say are game changers for me, that would genuinely change my mind and my life.
See, the books you just recommended to my audience are all fantastic books, and when I post this, I'll make sure the video version will have pictures of the books so that they can see those books. And I want them to get it. At least each of them can pick 2 or 3. I will definitely get all of them. I will.
I look forward to hearing your review on them. But you're going to love them, I'm sure. I'm sure of it.
Now, let's wrap this up. I'll ask my last question. My usual last question is, what's your vision for Africa in the next 30 years' time?
Ooh, that's a good question. That is a good question. What's my vision for Africa in the next 30 years? And the next 30 years, another generation would be of age.
Yeah.
And so it is between now and then, it is our job to create a society that they're proud to call home. So 30 years from now, I want young Africans, because actually one of the things that made me start Vemoye and really made me angry was that I felt like the generation before us did not leave us an Africa that we could be as proud as we should be or could be about it, you know? And so I want us to do what I felt we should have received. I want the 20 somethings of that next generation to be able to go to Africa and say, yeah, no, this is my home, this is where I'm from. And the connotations around that shouldn't be poverty, negativity, starvation, all the things that of lack that have surrounded the narrative around Africa. I want to say, and I want that young generation to be entitled. And I say that from the best kind of way. Entitlement suggests that you didn't know it could be any other way, right? This was the normal for you.
Okay.
Right? We talk about people who are wealthy and stuff like their kids are wealthy and they're spoiled because that's just the norm for them, right? And so, in the best kind of way, I want the next generation of Africans to think this is how it always should have been. This is what are you saying?
Okay.
This is how it was supposed to be. You know?
Okay.
That would make me feel like we've done what we wanted to do.
Great. Now, see that word entitled.
I know it's a dangerous one.
I will tell you, I don't like it, but I understand your perspective of it.
Yeah.
Okay. No, Korede. Sorry, my bad.
Oh yeah.
My bad. Thank you very, very much for being a very interesting personality guest of the Think Big for Africa podcast.
Thank you so
and
much,
you guys, your work is essential, and I want to hear your progress.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yes, because hearing your progress would also continue to energize me to do what I do. Okay.
Yes, exactly. The conversation is fueled by progress being made, right?
Yes.
Otherwise, what's the point of talking? So
exactly.
Yes, I completely agree. Yeah.
Exactly. All right. Take care.
Thank you so much, sir. It was
Bye-bye.
lovely being on the podcast. Bye.
Yeah. Bye.